Thank you. This is John Kruger, and this is the November 4th, 2021 study session for the Estes Valley Library District's Board of Trustees. Tonight, our consideration will be focused on the 2022 budget and public hearing. And with that, we have a full board present, as well as staff, Cindy Seckman, Claudine Perot, and Friends and Foundation President Ann Finley. So we will turn the meeting over to the Finance Committee, and I'm assuming that David, that you will start with the formalities.
Yes, I will. Thank you, John. Good evening, all. As treasurer of the library's governing board, I am calling to order the first of two public hearings for the Estes Valley Public Library District 2022 proposed budget. The Library Board of Trustees will approve the 2022 final budget on Monday, December 13th at 6:30 p.m. I want to start by acknowledging the work of the staff on this budget and commend them on their efforts. It's very well put together. Second, I want to also mention that at the October board meeting, version 1 was presented to the board as required and published on the library website for public viewing. Since that time, updated information has become available to the accounting department and on items like insurance costs and unneeded repairs. And the library's efficient accounting staff has already incorporated these changes into version 2. And that is the version we will be looking at tonight. All changes can be discussed during the budget highlights at that time, and any other questions, of course, can be addressed at that point. So also, there will be no live public comments at this meeting, and none have been submitted, as Claudine mentioned to us earlier. It is my understanding that the second budget hearing that the library will attempt to take live questions on that meeting, but that is to be determined, I believe. So, all right, we'll get in.
David, if I might, actually, if we do have any public that logs in, we will give them opportunity to make a comment during the public hearing portion, okay? To my knowledge, okay, no one has logged on. Is that correct, Joanna?
John,
yes. Go ahead, Claudine.
John, the first hearing was already sent out to the public in our usual view live, and within the notes of the public budget statement, it said it did not have logging into this meeting. It's just, it was not made available to the public. So we're not going to get that tonight.
Oh, all right.
And I'm sorry for the miscommunication. That's on me. What it stated was, please have comments available. You can either call a number or send to an email, and I would bring it forward. We are planning to have that per your request live. People can log in the second hearing.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry for the confusion.
No, my fault.
Okay, no problem, but thank you for clearing that up. But it becomes a moot point since we have no one with us tonight anyway. So we'll move right on to the budget overview. The proposed budget has been announced in both newspapers and posted on the library website. And we're going to deal with, as I said, version 2, and here are the revised numbers. Total revenue is $2,500,472. Total expenditures are $2,377,993. And expenditures are divided into two categories: services and support. Services include circulation, youth, adult, and technical expenses, and they total $1,421,673. Support includes administration, building, and capital expenses, and that total is $956,320. So at this point, I will turn over to the library's director, Claudine, to provide the budget highlights.
Thank you, David. You'll be pleased to know that during the government affairs meeting, John Kruger said, thank you, Claudine, for all the years you've provided the budget highlight. But since we have an actual accountant, perhaps we can begin having her report on the work that she actually did. And I said, great idea, John. So I am available to answer questions. The way Cindy and I talked about it was she, of course, will speak to her own notes. If there are any questions related to what, she can answer. If there are any questions related to why, it might turn over to me. But let's, the start of the show, Accountant Cindy Seckman.
Yep. So I'm going to start by, I'm going to go through the budget highlights, and I think if it's okay, I'm just going to cover pretty much version 1 first. The changes between version 1 and version 2 only total $1,800. They net down to $1,800. There's a few larger ones, but they do net, and I think I'll circle back to them if that's okay. So let's start with revenue and the good news. The preliminary evaluation we received from Larimer County, our property tax revenue has increased by $127,500 some odd dollars over 2021 revenue. It's not a huge increase, but it's definitely going the right direction. I do believe we all probably know by now that Prop 120 did not pass this week. So we don't have to worry about that in the future. However, Senate Bill 21-293 that was passed into law earlier this year will still affect our revenue in 2023 and 2024. But from the initial calculations that we did, from the information we received from the assessor's office, SB 21-2093 will only affect our revenue by about $50,000. So barring any new legislation, which there always could be any day, but barring any new legislation, our revenue is we can plan on our revenue remaining steady pretty much over the next 3 years. Something comes up, we'll handle it or analyze it when it happens. But for now, we're looking good over the next 3 years. In late 2020, we completed our compensation study, and with the plan of possibly increasing employee salaries to target or market per the study. We thought it would take it about 3 years to complete. The good news is we think we're going to be able to complete it within 2022. We implemented 50% of it so far for most employees so far this year already in 2021. And the full targeted amount for each employee, every employee, is in the 2022 budget at the full target rate. So that's good news. We had a facilities maintenance audit done, and everything that was scheduled or recommended in 2022, we're able to capture and cover within our operating budget. I know the line item still says capital. That's because some of the projects are capital in nature and will be depreciated, but the cost we're able to absorb in our operating budget this year, and we won't have to dip into our capital reserves. That's really good news, because I think in the 10-year forecast, we determined in a few outer years, we might be needing to dip into that capital reserve. So leaving it intact for 2022 is very good news. Like David said, currently our surplus revenue over operating expenses is about $122,000. That's only about $1,800 different from version 1. Version 2 is posted on the website for anybody out there that would like to look at the most recent that we're talking about this evening, and we'll circle back to what those changes were. In the Excel spreadsheet that I hope all of you here on the screen are looking at, I did add a notes tab, tabulating all of the changes so we can easily see them and follow them. I think that was a question in the October board meeting. We had a few changes already. And so now I've got them documented, and we'll continue to document as changes occur, and it'll be easy to follow. We still have a few unknowns. It's only the first part of November. We have till mid-December before we have to do our final approval. And one of the unknowns is revenue, only because the final assessment won't be here till December 10th. Now that's literally just days before the final budget will need to be approved at the December 13th board meeting. So I promise all of you will be the third to know. As soon as I hear, I will let Claudine know immediately, and then she will in turn let you know. So historically, it's, from what I understand, and only the 2 years I've been here to see, the change is not large. It's not usually large enough to affect, any of our expenditures or cause any ruckus or big changes. So, but again, you will know as soon as we know. Library insurance was one of the unknowns, and it's still a little bit unknown. AJ Gallagher is our insurance broker, and they were telling us that they were seeing pretty large increases in both property and flood insurance. And the flood insurance bill came in, and actually that's version 2. I said it wasn't going to do that, but the increase is only 14%, which was really good news. And actually, I need to say, just yesterday, I got a quote on our property insurance, and more good news. So far, it's only an increase in premium of 14%. Now it's still a huge unknown because we have questions on coverage. We've asked for quotes on a few different kinds of coverage. We're looking at some alternatives that will be discussed in our next finance committee. So library insurance is still largely unknown, but sounds like maybe the total cost isn't going to be as high as we anticipated, which is great news. The last unknown is the health benefits, medical, dental, and vision. Now, we had in the budget an increase of 5%, and we actually do now know that our health premiums are only increasing by about 4%. That's wonderful news. They did not increase the last 2 years at all. Only 4% is not a large increase, either for the library or the employees individually. So that's great news. But what's still very unknown is we're in the middle of open enrollment right now. And until we know for sure if employees change their coverage, add their new spouses, there's still a lot of factors that could change in the benefits arena. So for now, at this point, we did not update any of those numbers because they'll just need to be updated again. So that's kind of an overview. Maybe before I launch into the individual departments, does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Cindy, I think it's wonderful that you were able to bring the staff salaries in, as you said, 1 year instead of 3 years. Claudine, I hope that may help the staff shortages coming up in recruitment. So I thought that was just a wonderful bonus to this year's budget.
Absolutely. Agreed. Okay, so let's move on to the individual departments. And these are things that are new in the 2022 budget. The budget's more than 200 lines long. There's a lot in there, but a lot of it is, repeat stuff and that's in there every single year. So these are just kind of the highlights of things that are new in this year's budget. First one, kind of hard for me to talk about, but we did budget for a part-time accounting support person for me. It's going to accomplish a couple things. And first and foremost, it's going to help us to do some segregation of duties. Right now, me being the only person in the finance department or accounting department, it's There's really no segregation of duties. So having a second person will provide some of that. Plus, it'll also provide one extra layer of a supervisory review function. And review is utmost important in any accounting function anywhere. So that's good news, and also hopefully help to stabilize my hours a little bit. It is a 24-hour position that we've budgeted for. And hopefully we will have good luck in finding that person. Based on information that some of you received from joining the CalCon conference this year, we have budgeted $30,000 for a community needs assessment. It's a lot more than just a survey that we would normally do to try to figure out in this post-COVID world how we can better serve our community. The next item, actually, the only reason it's in admin is because it's in the marketing budget. This is actually a technical services item. It's they have a new social media management platform called Hootsuite that they're pretty excited about. Again, it's only an admin because it's in the marketing budget. Version 2, we'll get back to that in a moment. This year we added quite a large sum, $16,000 for a document management software system. Right now we call it Laserfish, if I'm saying that correctly, just because that's one of the vendors or products that the libraries have actually looked at for several years, and we know that the town uses this product. And I think we found, being out and working remotely for more than a year, that it's time. It's time to get this in the budget and get this done. There's a lot of pieces to it in this amount in the budget, and they're on several different line items. One of the pieces is, one of my goals is to take the invoicing process, both Visa and accounts payable, paperless this year. Laserfish does have an option for that, but we'll also look at other vendors. But this was just a way to get an amount secured in the budget so we can start looking at this product next year. Patron Services. Patron Services doesn't have a lot of changes, thank goodness. We call them Steady Eddie, but they are working on their staffing. I think everybody might know that Peggy Moore is retiring at the end of the year. So like other departments, they're still working on getting their staffing solidified. Program and outreach. It's a really new team this year. We have one person that's been here a long time. For right now, we have a new supervisor and a new youth librarian. And so we've made the decision at this point in time, this may change, but at this point in time, we've decided that maybe one of the 3 positions that are open for the program and outreach team, we might postpone till 2023. And what that will do, if they can hire the adults, the civic librarian, and then another librarian that used to be called Adult Services, that might now be Makerspace. There's a lot of conversation about what to do. If we can get those 2 new employees on board, give that team time, some gel, solidify, figure out what they want to do, get that community needs assessment done to figure out maybe what direction they can go, then I think we'll have a much better idea what that 3rd position really should be. So at this point in time, we do not have their 3rd opening in the 2022 budget. Friends of Foundation, most of the money that on the support that they provide to the library, above and beyond covering the needed expenses, largely supports the program team. And a couple things that are exciting this year is mailing books out to the 4-year-old households, which will help with our strategic goal of early literacy. And then there's something called the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And I don't know a lot about that one, but it sounds pretty awesome and I can't wait to learn about it. So any specific questions on that, I bet Claudine could answer for us. So, okay, acquisitions. Now acquisitions, we left a little flat this year. We talked a lot about it. As far as printed materials, we left flat mainly because we don't really know yet what the post-COVID world is going to look like. And, you know, we know in the COVID world, our digital collection has greatly exploded, and we've expanded it and done a lot of work to expand that collection. So we're just going to take a year and kind of wait and see what happens on the printed side. There's still a hefty budget for all the printed materials. It's a good amount in every category. So we're not shorting ourselves in any way. We just didn't have any plans for large increases this year. Now for the digital, we were looking at increases and looking at many of the vendors to provide added services to what we already have. Well, what we found is our main provider, which is called Overdrive, has been gobbling up these little companies. And so now our patrons have access to all this, the larger libraries and greater stuff. And so far, they haven't increased our fees. So that's another reason that part of acquisitions is remaining flat for 2022. And then we'll see how it goes and reevaluate for 2023. Technical services is always busy. They've always got a lot going on, a lot of ideas. I think you all know during 2020, we converted to a new ILL system, CERSI. It's our catalog system. And that was a huge conversion, took a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of work. We've had a little over a year now for everybody to get used to it and learn it. And now we get to go out there and add on some of the enhancements, some of the things that we really liked when we signed on with CERSI in the first place. And we're now in a position where we can start adding things and expanding the service for our patrons. There's a whole list of things. If you would like to go through them, we can. I don't know what they all are. But it's the whole package. We're looking to add just under $10,000 to enhance the system for our patrons. They want to update the presentation systems in our meeting rooms, which I think since we've been back in the library and everybody's still in masks and trying to social distance, that will be a good upgrade, as well as Wi-Fi access points in every room. Facilities, aside from the audit we had done, we are looking at getting RFID door access systems. So we'll all wear badges and have badges to get into our offices or the staff rooms, and even the building, as opposed to keys. We think this will greatly increase our security. Who knows how many keys are out there with the turnover of staff. And this way, if when a staff leaves, their badge is simply turned off, and we don't have to worry about trying to recover any items. We have a couple of ADA projects. We need a wheelchair compatible table in the quiet room, and our stair handrail apparently needs some work. And we are going to get those addressed in 2022. Like I said in the very beginning, the depreciable expenses that were planned for 2022, we are able to absorb in the operating budget, which is really good news. But this is a really good time and a really good segue to move into our version 2 changes, because this is one of the major ones. One of the projects or capital expenses that as a result of the audit was to replace our front automatic doors, and that's pretty big cost. It's over $15,000. Well, the good news is we had it inspected and we had them serviced, and we're told they're in good shape. We don't need to replace the doors. And what we did was add a small amount, $500 a year, and they're going to come in and inspect them every year and do what we need to do to keep them maintained. I'm not sure how long they're recommending that they're going to last, but we don't have to replace them in 2022. So that was good news. We are looking to do roof work, definitely our roof, repairing and sealing in the roof and coating the wood siding. Those will both be capital and nature projects and will be depreciable. But again, we're absorbing them in our operating budget. So we just saved almost $15,000 on the doors. What did we do with that money? Because the difference in version 1 and 2 isn't that large. So what we did was went back to the admin department. One of our main strategic goals in the 2021 through 2023 strategic plan has to do with growing internally to exceed externally and train our staff on the principles of equity, diversion, and inclusion, EDI. And there's several really good programs out there that we'd really like to look at. This it's using an outside vendor. It's something that we would really only need once every 10 years. The cost is large, but once every 10 years, and then changing our culture and assimilating new people into that culture as they come in will be the goal. So the training, we added $10,000, and then we added some for travel to bring this outside vendor in if needed. We don't know if it can be done virtually. We just put placeholders in the budget specifically for EDI. That is the biggest offset to the front doors. If you can see on the notes, the others are quite small. We added a little bit to one of the supply accounts, and I did take away some for the flood insurance, and the other tweaks are just less than $1,000, incredibly small. So I think that's all I had starting out. I hope everybody had a chance since the last board meeting to look at the spreadsheet, and let me know if you have questions, please.
All right, Cindy, thank you for those budget highlights. Very well presented. We'll move on since we're not having any public comments. I will actually start the board comments with a couple of my own. Cindy, the additional accounting person, I think at this stage we know is, I consider crucial. It provides that segregation of duties to some extent that we've been searching for a couple of years now. But I also think it frees you up to do more pertinent oversight and analysis. And I think that's another crucial role. And we've all seen the workload you've been carrying, and admiring you carrying that load. But it's time for exactly what you're doing. So I agree completely with that. The second is with the dynamic nature that the libraries face, and I think it's very timely to include the community needs assessment. I think it's the right time that we need to know what the community feels and adjust services accordingly as we can. So those are my two comments on the budget right now. So anyone else on the actually anyone that wants to ask questions of Cindy or Claudine, this is a good time to do so.
Okay, I guess I'll jump in. I too fully support the additional person since we were not able to do our internal audit element through contractors. I think the separation of duties and so forth are critical to maintaining a good transparency and so forth with the public view on our finances. So that's great. I would I guess, have one concern about the budget, and that is the idea of not increasing our acquisition side. Going back to 2013, and when we got the mill levy increase, there was a general commitment to increase that consistently by at least 2% every year. I understand the wanting to kind of see where things are headed, and I don't know which area, whether it's, you know, new fiction or nonfiction or digital or what, but I kind of hate to see us drop that increase off, even though we may not be able to actually spend it if we can't find the right mechanism. But having it in the budget as an increase then carries over to future years as far as having that as a benchmark, if you will. So I guess I would encourage some rediscussion around whether or not we want to have that 2% increase showing up in our acquisitions. I think that's my main points.
John, I know you're going one board member at a time, but I would also encourage if there's any dialogue around what
Yeah.
each, if anyone else wants to add or subtract what you said.
Right. David's in charge. He can call on folks.
Sorry about that.
Well,
That's all right.
no problem. John, we've discussed that commitment, and I think you place a high level of importance on maintaining that commitment. Cindy, any idea what that would add right now? I mean, even ballpark figure on what that would add to the budget?
Yeah. And
Give me a minute.
if I might, in the past, our budgets have shown what that is as a separate element for the board only. So we normally have the total, if you will, of acquisition side that's a separate line item. It's not part of the budget as such, but it is board information, and it might be good to have that.
I can calculate that for you. Do you want that this evening? You know, I can do it while we're talking if you would like, or we can send it out in an email.
I don't require it right now. I can add it up also. I'm just saying, and I'm not suggesting line by line necessarily, but I think that total somehow ought to show some level of increase. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, Cindy, I'm not sure. I mean, it would be nice to know how much it's going to affect that surplus and if we need to make any adjustments because of that as a total. So I think the library needs to fulfill commitments. 2013 seems, as you age, it just seems weird to say that it seems like a long time ago.
It is.
And at that point, it would have been hard to anticipate the changes to online services, and obviously hard to anticipate changes like a virus in the world. But I don't know that changes what promises were made, John. So it's a tough question.
And I'm not suggesting that this board is officially tied to those commitments, but I think it shows a certain level, if you will, of integrity that we are continuing to increase the level that we're spending on that side, along with bringing salaries up to speed and some of the other things we're doing. That's all.
I think it's a very pertinent point, John, and I would really like the other board members to comment on this, if you would. If you'd like, I can go around and on my screen, I would start with Pete. If you had any questions or comment on this issue.
Not on this issue. I do have a question after we're done with it, though.
Okay. Beth, I'll turn to you.
Sure. I had a similar question of what are the implications moving forward to keep positions flat. And hearing what the future brings. And I think that the needs assessment is going to give us some of that information. And so I have another question about some of that. I honestly don't know. Like, I think in terms of looking ahead to the future, it's useful to always increase a little bit, knowing that we're going to likely go that direction. But I don't have an opinion either way. That's just my feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not trying to put any on the line for decision. It's just something as a board we need to address. Kay, any questions or comments? I'm not hearing you.
I had to
Okay.
unmute.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I guess when I heard that we were staying flat, in my mind, based on other things I heard, I didn't feel that our circulation was staying flat because we've increased the ebook efforts. I also heard that Overdrive is growing. It might be nice to know what that growth is, if there's any way that they can define that. So if the question comes up, why aren't we, increasing our circulation, we can say we are via Overdrive. I'm not opposed to putting an increase in. It'd be maybe nice to look at the numbers. What is the circulation of hard copy? We're looking at things without really a lot of data. And I think it could help to make some good decisions if we had just a little more information.
Okay. Thank you, Kay. Lynn, I'll turn to you.
I guess what I'd say is, whatever commitments made 2013, as somebody said, we couldn't have anticipated this. I think if we choose to keep it steady for this year, we have to keep that at the back of our head as we do the 23 budget, and maybe have an extra increase then, if that makes sense. I think John said it, that whatever we do in 22 is the benchmark for growth in future years. So if we don't increase now, we're set back a year.
Mhm.
And we need to keep that in mind. I think that the community needs assessment may help sort of pinpoint where do we need the increases to be. I mean, it's a different world. Should we be increasing some areas more than 2% and some less?
Okay.
Can I just say a very quick calculation? The increase is surprisingly small. It's less than $5,000.
Wow.
And that includes digital. So bottom line to the budget is not going to be harmful.
Okay, with that, I thought it would be relatively small, but that's even smaller than I was guessing. I guess it's hard. And John, let me be clear. This is when you start in 2013. It was a 10-year commitment for that,
Well,
or was it just?
No, the 10-year commitment was not to go back and ask for a higher mill levy to the tax folks. But part of the overall request for increasing was an internal, at least of the board, commitment that we would do 2% per year increases, and very specifically around acquisitions.
Okay.
So it is a very small amount, and I'm not saying, oh, it's got to happen at all, or that we are tied at this board to that decision. But I think it is a good reflection to the patrons that we're continuing to try to increase that aspect if we are at the same time making the kind of increases to salaries and staff and so forth. That's all.
Okay. Well, I will tell you so we can move on at this point. I will give you my opinion and we can make a decision. With knowing the relatively low impact of that increase on the budget, and as you stated, John, we don't even necessarily have to spend it. I don't see any reason not to, because the key phrase you said said earlier, John, that resonates with me is the integrity that we provide to the public. So I would vote at this point for a nominal number like $5,000 to include the increase and keep it as the benchmark moving forward. Is that something we need to discuss to vote on, or is that? And I guess at this meeting, technically, we can't vote.
No,
vote on anything.
there's no vote needed. I think it's an understanding of staff if the board has a sense that that's a direction that they'd like for the next version of the budget. That's all.
Well, then let me ask the board in this fashion. Does anyone oppose adding an additional $5,000 to the budget to take care of that? Then I would say I would recommend Cindy to include that in what we'll term as version 3 for the what is the meeting this month on the 18th? I can't remember. At the second budget hearing at the regular board meeting. So, okay, let's move on from there to any other questions. Pete, I think you said you had an additional question.
Am I? Yeah, I'm on, right. No, this is back up under, I guess it's under administrative. I lost my spreadsheet for a short time. So Claudine, this is for you. Tell me again, what was the impact of the increases to get the people to the right market rate in 2022?
I'm going to turn that over to Cindy,
Okay, Cindy.
because she actually did a calculation and put it on a separate spreadsheet, which
Okay.
showed both the financial, the dollar amount, and the percentage of expenditure towards personnel, which I think will also be interesting, because we had come up with, and perhaps arbitrarily Claudine came up with, boy, I really don't want to increase over 68% of expenditures for personnel, and by
Right.
gum, we did it, you know, and but I'll let Cindy answer that with real data.
Okay, so in a way, it's a really hard question to answer, because when we did the study, there was a whole different cast of characters than we have now. And they've kind of continually shifted throughout the process. So looking back at the original study that we, launched everything from, the increase in annual salary
Just ballpark. I'm just curious.
it was about $100,000.
Okay. And,
Yes.
and thanks. And I had a second piece. It's more of a process question out of curiosity. What has been communicated to the employees at this point? Or are you planning on doing that one-on-one when you give an increase, or, that's for Claudine, sorry.
Sure. So we've communicated to everyone on staff the process to date. We've communicated with them after you as a board receive updates on the compensation study process. The staff in general received a similar message. When we moved to everyone 50% to target, each supervisor met, we sent out a global email, and then each supervisor met individually with their team members to tell them precisely what that meant. So they're aware that the goal is in the first pay period in January 2022, what the target is. Of course, I'm just going to give an extra 30 seconds here, Pete. Some people were delighted. And we realized people who were hired in 2021 were hired at market. So, the longer folks have been here, the bigger the increase, and the shorter they've worked here, the smaller the increase. So we corrected all of that partly, and then the rest, everyone's clear on what's happening in January. at least I believe we have communicated effectively. We'll see what happens in January.
Yeah, that's really why I was asking, because it was a matter of managing employee expectations.
Great, well said.
Is this you know, they need obviously some time spent on making sure they understand that this is a catch-up process or a exercise. I've just seen a lot of times where people go, well, now this is my expectation for every year. And, you know, it's not, anyway, I belabor it, but it sounds like you got it covered. So.
Thanks, Pete. I don't think you're belaboring it. I think it's an incredibly important cultural shift, and the appraisal process is now wrapped up with it, where, you know, we're implementing quarterly reviews, you know, with a probable annual performance appraisal process. It's all coming together. And I think I've been pretty consistent in saying this is all theoretical at this point. We're going to practice it together. We're going to refine it as we go on. So Cindy, you know, you can say whether you, from your point of view, this has been clear or not, but we've
And I
done our
think we
best.
also, I'm sorry. I
I'm
think we also made it clear that it was contingent upon the approval of the budget by the board.
Yeah.
That's still the main contingency, and we will know that as of December 15th.
Perfect. Thank you.
And a portion of that is that we're going away from the concepts of bonuses. There might be some special considerations there, but on a normal basis, we're going to catch up with salary and handle most merit kinds of things through regular salary and not through bonus.
Through percentage base increases.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm just showing off for Pete, John.
So the
Well, I
line
think it was
item
a
we
very-
used,
Go ahead, Cindy.
the line item we used to have in the budget for merit increases or for merit payments every year is not there this year.
And no, I agree. It was a very pertinent question, Pete, because this is a huge transition, helpful for the employees and hopefully helpful for recruitment for staffing. So, okay, anyone else? We don't have a large board, so Beth, Kay, or Lynn, any additional questions, comments?
Nothing from me.
Oh,
I do have one question, and maybe I apologize. My internet is unstable, so I don't know what's happening if you can't hear me. You mentioned there are 3 positions, 2 that you're going to fill that were changing slightly, potentially in that third, kind of waiting to see what happens. Makes sense to me. I was wondering, and maybe you said this, Cindy, I apologize if I missed it. Where is that money going? How are you using that money? Is it part of just the
Surplus.
compensation that, okay.
It's just
Yeah, I
rolled
didn't know
over
if it
into
had a
surplus. Yeah.
specific place. Okay.
Good
And
question.
then connected to that, and I apologize, I think I've asked this before, but I know that it has been challenging to hire folks and to hire in this climate. And I wondered if there's any line item budget, anything that is in addition to what you've done before for recruiting or anything like that.
No,
I didn't
Beth,
see it, but it could be hidden.
I really have to say one of the trends we're seeing is we're hiring more and more people who live outside of Estes Park and live in Loveland or Longmont. And we have not budgeted for moving expenses or anything that might compel someone to what we need to do to retain them. And so all I can say is, Beth, thank you for that suggestion, and let's noodle it offline, Cindy, is what would be a logical way to account for that. And Beth, you know, as someone you're an employer too, you may have some suggestions. We would be very, very open to that. What's worked at Eagle Rock? Massive cash hiring bonuses. We'll talk offline. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the mystery. What is going to work? We'll run that one together.
okay. I think, and Kay, you said you were okay at this point? Okay. Well, again, there'll be a second budget hearing. We have the one minor update, Cindy, for the acquisition increase. I think that's the only one right now. Is that correct? Direction for staff?
In addition to Beth's recommendation, which I didn't actually open to the circle, and David, I apologize for that, but I do think it's a logical point. We did not, I mean, for example, it's very minor, but our publications line item, which is, used to be just a few $100 a year for a job opening. I can't remember what it is, Cindy, off the top of my head, but it is very much over budget, easy to ignore because it's a small line item. But little things, it is affecting little things. And I can't remember who I shared it with. It may have been just staff and who shared it with me. Oh, it was Lori Graves, the consultant, shared with me an article from a municipal journal of some kind saying the vacancy of government jobs across the country is, clearly in 6-figure, and that there are police departments now offering 5-figure signing bonuses, and that this is trickling down through municipal employers. We're not municipal, we're government, and our job is at this time, knock on wood, not as contentious. But she shared it with me to say, it's really time for all of us to start really looking at retention. And I said, good idea, Lori, but then I didn't put it in the budget. So Beth, thank you. So David, that's a long way of saying, I think there's 2 things.
Okay. David, I would ask, since Ann Finley is here with us with the Friends and Foundation, if she has any comments or thoughts to be included before we close the hearing.
Oh, absolutely. Kind of going around board members first, but Ann's an integral part of our meeting. So
thanks, John.
Go ahead.
I just had one thing. I think I'm really excited about the community assessment also, because I think it'll really guide us as a foundation to be more effective in terms of how we, what we give to youth. So I think it's a great, I'm really pleased it's going to happen. So that's all my only comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie.
All right. Thank you, Ann. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up this first session and turn it back over to John.
Okay, so the hearing is closed officially. Is there something to be read with regard to that or not?
I don't think so. I think it was just.
Okay. Fine. Just a couple of items then as we move forward. FYI for the board, I will not be present at the November 15th board meeting. So Lynn Lawson will be chairing that session, that meeting, and that will be the second hearing for our budget, as well as consideration of 2 manuals, the employee manual and the volunteer manual. In addition, I have requested that Claudine send to the board her self-evaluation on appraisal, and each of you should receive a digital version of a blank version of the appraisal. I'm requesting that you send that to me via email before Thanksgiving, please. And then our December 2nd board study session is actually an executive session that will be solely focused on that appraisal of Claudine. And that, of course, is in preparation for her increase in salary per the compensation study for next year, which has not been initiated at all at this stage, other than it does show up in your budget, draft budget. Any comments, Claudine, around that?
No, pretty straightforward. Thanks, John.
Okay. If anyone has any questions about that process. Okay. So we will do a written and composited appraisal this year, where last year we just did pretty much a verbal one. So,
John, I can say that we do have 2 newer board members who have not gone through a normal cycle. And when I send my self-evaluation with the appraisal, my self-evaluation, and then it'll have a form for you to fill out, but I'll have all the instructions in the email to the board, John.
Right. And hopefully we'll have that by the first of next week, you think?
I like the way you said that. Aye, aye, Captain.
Okay. Very good. This is just a study session and we had that singular topic. If anyone has anything they want to offer or say to the board before we stop recording, now would be the time to raise your hand to do it. Okay, next meeting is Monday, November 15th. Hope you have a good meeting and everyone stay healthy and safe.